And I'm going to go right into the Word and just take no more time than I need just to deliver this message for today. I believe we should hear the Word. And God honors the Word above His own name. Hello. And so we need to give honor to the Word today. Now, in Matthew chapter 28, verse 11, it says, while they were on their way, behold, some of the guards went into the city and reported to the chief priest and everything that had occurred. And when they, the chief priest, had gathered with the elders and consulted together, they gave a sufficient sum of money to the soldiers. I just mentioned that a minute ago. And they said, tell people, his disciples came at night and stole him away while we were sleeping. Now this is what the soldiers said to the high priest. They got to get the story. They didn't go to Pilate. They didn't go to Pilate. They didn't go to any of those people, the Roman emperors. They didn't do that because they knew that there would be death on their heads. These soldiers, whenever they had to stand guard, this was the elite of elite. These were special forces. And when they would stay there, if something happened with that which they were watching, a prisoner escaped or something like that, the historians tell us what they would do is they would take these men, tie them to a stake in their uniform and burn them and kill them. So these men knew that what had happened could cost them their life. So they went to the religious leaders. They went to the priest, the high priest. But let me stop and get you to look at something. Go over to verse 2, okay? And it says in verse 1 that Mary Magdalene and the other Mary went to take a look at the tomb, and behold, there was a great earthquake. And we saw that several times here in the play. For an angel of the Lord descended from heaven and came and rolled the boulder back and sat upon it. And his appearance was like lightning, and his garments as white as snow. And those keeping guard were so frightened at the sight of him that they were agitated, and they trembled and became like dead men. But the angel said to the woman, do not be alarmed and frightened, for I know that you are looking for Jesus, who was crucified. He is not here. He has risen as he said he would do. Come and see the place where he lay. Then go quickly and tell his disciples, he is risen from the dead, and behold, he is going before you to Galilee. There you will see him. Behold, I have told you. Now go back to the story there in verse 13. So what had happened is the soldiers were put into a trance, and they were just absolutely frozen and couldn't move, couldn't do anything. And it says in verse 13 again, and he said, tell the people, his disciples, that his disciples came at night and stole him away while he was sleeping, while we were sleeping. And if the governor hears of it, he will appease him and make you safe and free from trouble and care. He said, if Pilate hears about it, don't worry, it'll be all right. So they took the money and did as they were instructed. And this story has been current among the Jews to the present day. Now the 11 disciples went into Galilee, the mountain of which Jesus had directed, and made appointment with them. Now watch this. The story's going to unfold, and I'm going to help you look at it in this light. Here is this moment that I said just a few seconds ago when we were doing the offering. I believe it's the biggest lie that has ever been played over mankind, all of history. It is the biggest lie that has ever been supported for 2,000 years. Because that lie had to keep being invested in, because the lie would eventually run into truth, and truth would confront the lie, but the lie had to keep being supported to keep it going for 2,000 years. Are you hearing me? Now, the lie there was a bribe. The guards who knew the truth were being paid to communicate this falsehood, this lie. And the lie, the bribe, 21 centuries later, is still being struck in the dark rooms of the media moguls, in the classrooms of the universities, and in the chambers of politicians, and in the boardrooms of banks, even in the places of Hollywood, and even in the house of the Lord. That lie has been before the board members of every part of culture for 2,000 years. Every university has had to turn what it says so that that lie could stay there. Because if that lie ever gets out, everything changes. If that lie ever gets exposed, everything changes. A chief priest presented this elitist core that dominates and controls the information and thought of the culture. It's the same today. This high priest, he represented the voice and everything that would affect the culture of his time. It controlled the culture. It's the same today. The establishment and governing elites of today are still paying the bribe to cover the truth that Jesus is alive. Let's go back for a moment, 2,000 years ago. Come with me, just for a minute. We're going to step back again and get a feel for this event, just like the play did. They kept stepping back. That has played out over and over and over throughout mankind's history, and mankind's history in the pursuit for truth. Have you know, man has been pursuing truth for thousands of years, but he has been buffeted by this lie. The Bible tells us that Satan is the father of lies. So I believe the heart of this priest was influenced, like Judas was, by the very dark world of the demonic force of Lucifer, inspiring him to come up with and conjure up a thing that could say, just give these soldiers some money and keep it quiet. Think about it. And people for centuries who wanted to disprove Christ's resurrection have tried to explain why those Roman guards left their duty at the tomb. The same Roman soldiers that would worry about the smallest detail of their work because they knew what would happen to them if they failed at their duty. And I told you what it would be. They would be burnt with their uniforms at the stake. So this was not negligence on their part. This was something out of their control. This was something supernatural. So the soldiers decided to go to this high priest, to the council of the Sanhedrin. And the story would have looked like this. They were at the tomb, they said, and these men came, and we were there. And so all of a sudden, these men did something, and they threw something out at us, and it caused us to go to sleep. It caused us to be paralyzed. It was some kind of powder they threw on us. And then while we were almost out, we saw they came and they grabbed the body of this one called Jesus, and the disciples, some of his disciples, they ushered him away. Now the lie is set in motion. Now the lie is set in motion, and it is a full-blown demonic attack on the whole world. Come with me now. Moses did the same thing. He sent 12 spies into the land that was called the Promised Land, and that God had promised Abraham. And after 400 years in Egypt and 40 years in the wandering in the desert, the spies went into the land, and they came back, Numbers 13:32 says, with a bad report. How many of you know, there it was again, they were about ready to go in and receive something good from God, and right then the enemy gave a bad report and was trying to turn them from God's intended blessing. Do you know, when you get up to go to church, sometimes some of you have never had attacks like you have. You get up to do something right in your life and all hell breaks out. When I became a born-again believer 46 years ago, I gave my life to Christ, and when I did, I thought, wow, I'd been through a lot of stuff. I'd been in everybody's jail, been shot at, been, all that stuff. I thought, boy, I'd had a bad life. But once I got saved, then all hell broke loose. And I began to say, what's the deal with this? I didn't have this much trouble when I was out there living for the devil. Then I got it. Because now I wasn't going to live for him anymore. And he was mad as hell at me. He was mad at me. See, he can be mad as because he was angry that I was leaving his territory, his enslavement. I was going to step away from his control, and he was ticked off at me, and he sent everybody he could. I'll never forget the first time I really, about a week or two, been saved. All my friends, I thought, showed up and wanted to give me dope. They never wanted to give me any dope. Hello? Well, man, you know, when I wanted to get high, I couldn't find my friends. But all of a sudden now, because I changed camps, I left that camp and said, I'm on over here and I'm going to live for God. Boy, did the devil get mad and send me everybody he could. Are you listening to me? How do you know it was a bad report? You know, Satan will send a bad report into your life to get you discouraged, to get you feeling down, to get you feel like you're a loser. He'll send a bad report. But I'm here today to give you a good report. Now, the movie producer, James Cameron, some of you remember some of his movies, he bought into this lie. He used this one example. He took the bribe. This guy, James Cameron, he bought in. He paid for the lie through a Hollywood industry, paying so much money, and he produced a documentary saying that the tomb of Jesus and of his family had been found in Jerusalem. But this was such a hoax because it had already come through another source, and they had already done research that it had already been disproven that that was not the tomb of Jesus' family. But because of the fact that they didn't do enough research, it turned into a bust. It was quickly put away because they realized what a hoax it was. They had spent a lot of money thinking they could put out there that they solved the mystery. They found the tomb of Jesus' family. Well, let me tell you, even if they had, it was empty too. Hello, they found the tomb of Buddha and it was empty. They found come on, are you listening to me? They found the tomb of Muhammad, it was empty. I only know of one that when he left it, he came back. There's only one that came back. There's only one that came back. Now stay with me a couple more minutes. Watch this now. And in this process, 2,000 years ago, these high priests decided that they would tamper with and twist history to spread this lie. The soldiers were used to protect themselves. They took the money and they went away with it. Listen to this last part. A guy named George Gallup, he's a research person. He said this. He said, we are a nation in America today of biblical illiteracy. We are biblically illiterate today in America. You see, because we stopped bringing the gospel, we stopped letting kids pray in 1962. We stopped bringing any way that our generation of young people could hear God or hear God's word. We just put a stop to it. Because they were afraid that if that generation in 1962 got saved, we might not have had to go through the hippie movement. We might not have had to go through the hell we went through. And that devil was afraid, so he sowed that seed of that lie. Wow. You hearing this? One of Satan's names is deceiver. And in Matthew 24:4, it says, take heed that no man deceive you. How do you know the television is full of deception? How do you know every day you turn on TV and it's who can outlie? It's like a lying contest going on. Let me see if I can outlie your lie. But the lie that none of them have been able to even come close to was the lie that they did there in that moment when Jesus rose from the dead, and they said, no, don't let it out. That lie was the big lie. John 9:1. And it says this. I'm going to read it to you a little bit. I'm going to help you learn something. Are you here today? Yeah. I want you to remember this. A man with an experience is never at the mercy of a man with an argument. I'll say it again. A man with an experience is never at the mercy of a man with an argument. When you've experienced something, nobody's argument can change what you know you experienced. I mean, that'd be like going to a woman that just gave birth to a baby and try to explain to her about giving birth. Oh, let me help you. Let me explain to you what it's like. Shut up, fool. I never forget the day I was standing down 3 rooms, and I was down there with my wife, and I heard this lady. I couldn't see her, but I heard this lady in the room, and she was screaming. And I heard this, I mean, he was a well-meaning fool, guy, but he said to her, oh, sweetie, don't worry. It's all right. Just breathe. Golly. That woman started saying words like some old drunk sailor. She started calling him everything she could call him. She told that guy, shut up, get your hands off. It's your fault. A man with an experience, a woman with an experience is never at the mercy of a person with an argument. You hear that? Look at this story. As he passed along in verse 1 of chapter 9 of the book of John, as he passed along, he noticed a blind man from his birth. And his disciples asked him, Rabbi, who sinned? This man, his parents, that he should be born blind? Who was it? And Jesus answered, it is not that this man or his parents sinned, but he was born blind, watch this, in order that the workings of God should be manifested or displayed or illustrated through him, in him. We must work the works of him who sent me and be busy with his business while it is a daylight. Night is coming on when no man can work. Jesus is talking about there's a light. When the light is there, darkness flees. How do you know when you go in a room and you flip the switch on, light makes darkness run away? Hello? How do you know when you walk into a dark room and you saw this room, it gets dark in here. But how do you know as soon as the light came on, the light chased the darkness and held it back? In verse 5, as long as I am in the world, I am the light of the world. And when he had said this, he spat on the ground and he made clay and mud with his slava, and he spread it as an ointment on the man's eyes. He took and spit in the mud. That's clay. And how do you know where DNA is? The greatest cluster of your DNA is in your mouth. So what Jesus did, that's why life and death is in the mouth. See, life and death is in your mouth because your DNA comes out of your mouth, and you can speak life or you can speak death. And what Jesus did, he spit, and he spit in the mud. He said, I'm going to take clay, I'm going to spit into it, and I'm going to be like God the Father, and I'm going to make man see.